I want to talk in this section about the amazing dichotomy that we've seen in just the last week or so in the Congress. We've had the House pass a bill that will block states from requiring GMO labeling on food. Now, there's already 2 states that have passed that law, and this would essentially override those bills. I see a big constitutional problem with it. Of course, it's not become law yet. It still has to go through the Senate. 275 to 150, they passed the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act of 2015. How is it accurate when they prohibit you from knowing everything that's in your food? There's over 3,000 ingredients that are required to be labeled by the FDA. If somebody puts a particular ingredient, they have a list of 3,000 of them. If that ingredient is on that list that's from the FDA, you have to say that that ingredient is in your food. Of course, they're saying you're not going to be able to afford to eat if we have to change these labels. Really, is that really credible? That is something that we've seen coming out of the Coalition for Safe and Affordable Food. They said that this is going to increase $500 a year, your food cost, if these labels were to go through. And of course, as Blacklisted News points out, this is a lie that's been debunked over and over again. This is something that came out from the Council for Biotech Information, Monsanto, and the other trade organizations that create genetically modified organisms are part of that. Look, we have a lot of different ingredients, like I just said, that are listed on your food. You're free to look at that. You're free to consider those ingredients. You're free to ignore them. You're free to just blissfully choose it because you like the color of the label and you don't care at all what's in it. We have the thing called free choice, especially in grocery stores, but there are people who want to know, people who are very concerned, and we all as consumers have a right to know. The principle is called informed consent, but of course, that's something they don't really care about much anymore, is it? When you've got state governments like California telling people that we're going to mandate vaccines for you, for your children, and we don't really care whether you agree with this or not. We're not going to let you be informed about this, and we certainly don't care about your consent, and that's precisely what we're seeing here. As I've said before, we've seen the corporate model getting control of politicians and government so that they could create regulations for their smaller competitors to drive them out of business. That's been the anti-competitive model for a very long time. It's been a huge part of crony capitalism. I mean, you can see it even in the banking industry. Look at the act that was put together by Dodd and Frank. The Dodd-Frank bill basically created so many regulatory requirements that small banks everywhere are having to stop, cannot any longer write loans about homes or many business loans. They're having to get out of that business because they can't afford to comply with the massive amounts of regulation, reporting, and forms that are required by this so-called Reform Act. So once they get out, once they no longer have the competition from the smaller banks or whatever the industry is, then the big guys who got the legislation put in there to start with can come back and they can get that regulation removed so it no longer costs them any money. That's been the model for a very long time. But now the model is to keep you in the dark, to not let you know what the new trade treaties are about, to not let you know what's going in your food, and to tell you that even if you do know, you're going to be forced to get that. You're going to be forced to buy the insurance. You're going to be forced to buy affordable health care, just like you're going to be forced to buy food that doesn't have accurate food labeling information on it. They call it the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act, when they deny states requiring that they accurately label what's on there. That's the pattern. That's the pattern we've seen from our government for a very long time. That's why activists are calling it the Dark Act. But now the pattern is for the corporations to use government to hold a gun to your head, to force you to buy products that you don't want, that aren't safe, that you can't afford.
About about a year and a half ago, Anthony Gucciardi just said, man, I just did a Dr. Grip's liver cleanse, the one he recommends, and he's developing this proprietary stuff he's testing on himself right now. You really ought to do it. The results are dramatic after 6 days. And I'm like, no way I'm doing it. I don't believe that there's giant black or green balls in my gallbladder. And this is how ignorant I am. And he's like, look at it online. I'm not looking at it online because stuff like that grosses me out. I don't want to go there. Well, finally, about 6 months ago, they convinced me to do it.
I personally think everybody should go through a liver cleansing if you haven't done one. Results speak for themselves. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have done this, and it dates back even 1,000 years, drinking oils to cleanse and purge the liver. Actually, the Greeks and over in India with Ayurvedic medicine have done it the same way. But how it works is what you should do, and this is what our proprietary research led us to do back starting in the early 90s when we were looking at the best ways to cleanse the liver, was to develop an herbal formula that contains herbs that will help soften or break down these globules or these stones in the liver and the gallbladder.
This Liver Shield is the high-quality proprietary liver Trex developed by Dr. Grip that we've private labeled through him, and it's extremely strong, extremely concentrated, extremely high-powered. You combine that with the Oxy Powder, oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, dietary supplement, clinically tested. We have them discounted at the lowest price you're going to find anywhere. InfoWarsLife.com. Obviously, folks are probably talking to their healthcare provider before they do this. This is one of the single biggest results, if not the biggest I've ever seen in my life, literally in a 6-day period. This is something anybody can do. Obviously, the literature is well known on what liver cleanses do. This is the best one out there from our research. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139.
Now, as we were talking about in the last segment, we were talking about the DARK Act. Of course, they call it the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling when they deny you to have information about what's going into your food, when they override the constitutional authority that the states have to require labeling. This is for products that are within their state, and they're certainly within their right to put in laws that require that the manufacturers will tell people what is in their food, and it's been passed in a couple of states. So what they decided to do was to fight that at the national level. And of course, it's going to be fought at the international level. That's a huge part of the secret trade agreements, the transatlantic, the trans-Pacific trade agreements. Those are also going to shut down the idea that anyone should know if there's genetically modified organisms in their food. Why should we be concerned about that? Well, you need to understand what genetically modified organisms are, educate yourself, but we should all have the ability and the right to know what is in our food. And we should all be very concerned about genetic modified organisms, what we have already seen from these organisms in terms of studies from other countries. We saw the study in France where they showed the rats, the mice with tumors all over their bodies, just feeding them genetically modified food for a short period of time. That study was redone by Monsanto, and they shortened it up to an extremely short period of time and said, look, our mice didn't get those tumors because they ran it a fraction of the time that the French study did. So you can always find somebody that you can pay to do a study to prove that your product is safe. But we have a right to know what is in our food. But not when you've got the government that is for sale. Not when you have congressmen who can easily be bought off by Monsanto, by the Koch brothers. Again, one of these articles has pointed out that Koch brothers only had to pay $299,000 to block labeling of genetically modified food. That's an article from Zero Hedge. They point out that the guy who they have one particular congressman, just like Senator Pan in California took the lead for pushing through the mandatory vaccinations of children there. The guy that's doing this to push through genetically modified foods without anybody knowing what's in it is a guy by the name of Mike Pompeo from Kansas, a Republican. And it didn't cost them too much to get this through. They have paid $67 million to fight labeling laws all across this country at the state level. But even places where it has been won now, they decide they would go the next higher level and shut this down. Now, you have to ask yourself when you see this, when you see that you're not going to be allowed to know what's in your food, it's very interesting to see this in direct contradiction to what the government wants to know about you, which is everything.
To celebrate the birth of our country and give a big thanks to all the info warriors out there, we are now offering free shipping on every item shipped out of the InfoWarsStore.com warehouse. That's free shipping on all t-shirts, books, and DVDs. Free shipping on Molon Labe and 1776 belt buckles, which are also 25% off while supplies last. Free shipping on all of our InfoWarsLife.com nutraceuticals. If it's in the InfoWarsStore.com warehouse, it's shipping for free, all during the month of July. It's our way of saying thanks to the true heart and soul of this operation, who stand beside us and support us as we wage an info war for liberty and freedom for all. InfoWarsStore.com, free shipping for the month of July.